evening, you're watching News Mongolia on MNB World. I'm your host, Satlang Hort. For our top stories, COVID-19, 1,328 cases reported on Wednesday. Total cases are now 26,692. General Election Commission held an online meeting for the upcoming presidential elections. April 22nd, International Mother Earth Day, the climate crisis continues. For other news, stay tuned. On Thursday, the Health Ministry reported another high number of coronavirus cases, namely 1,328. Currently, vaccination rollout is processing rapidly. Today, about 14,000 healthcare workers, police officers, and special duty officers have been inoculated in ULAN-UDE. In the last 24 hours, 1,328 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Mongolia, with 5 more deaths and over 400 recoveries. The state's tally is now 26,692. ULANBAATAR saw the highest number of new cases, 1,245. The case numbers are surging in other provinces as well. Currently, 19 of 21 provinces in Mongolia have been affected by the virus. The state of emergency imposed from April 10th to 25th is coming to the end soon. The Ministry of Health submitted a request to the government to extend the lockdown by a further 7 or 14 days. The final decision will be made by the government. This week, the vaccination rollout has resumed nationwide. Yesterday, Mongolia received 50,400 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines as part of the COVAX program. Previously, the COVAX program had donated around 30,000 doses of AstraZeneca and Pfizer vaccines to Mongolia in March. The government has signed an agreement with China's Sinopharm company to buy 900,000 doses of the Vericell vaccine and 1 million doses of the Sputnik V vaccine from the Russian Direct Investment Fund. 300,000 doses of the Vericell vaccine have already been received in February. As of today, the global total for COVID-19 cases has now passed 143 million, with over 3 million fatalities. In March, scholars of the Mongolian National University of Medical Sciences completed their development for their coronavirus diagnostic tool using a saliva sample. The new diagnostic tool got its trademark on March 25th. Starting from next Monday, this diagnostic tool will be used for testing the public. On April 14th, the National University of Medical Sciences handed over 10,000 salivary diagnostics tools to Ministry of Health as per their order. One test kit can test 96 people. Because it uses human saliva, the testing process is much easier than the current nasal swab testing. Also, the result will be revealed in just 90 minutes, which is crucial for early coronavirus detection. The 10,000 diagnostics tools were distributed to major hospitals and laboratories in ULANBAATAR. It's notable that this scientific achievement of Mongolian scholars is now going into practical use. The medical team is planning to produce more of their tools to reach more people. The General Election Commission of Mongolia held an online meeting with political parties that have seats in parliament. During the meeting, they introduced the ongoing preparations for the upcoming presidential elections in June. The meeting was attended by representatives from the Mongolian People's Party, Democratic Party group in Parliament, Our Coalition, and the Right Person Electorate Coalition. The General Election Commission provided information on the running for presidential candidates, election campaigns, election observations, and voter-oriented activities for the Mongolian presidential elections of 2021. Now there is a very short time left for submitting documents for presidential candidates. During this pandemic situation, every process is carried out online. We'll send detailed guidelines on how to prepare registration documents and how to run election campaigns. For this year's presidential elections, Mongolian citizens overseas are able to attend through Mongolian consular departments. The Election Commission also talked about the voting machines to be used. They remarked that at the end of ballot, all ballot papers will be counted by hand. The registration for presidential candidates has a deadline of May 5th. On May 8th, the General Election Commission will announce the qualified candidates. Even though in-class schooling has closed during the lockdown, students are still preparing hard for the entrance exams during the times of the pandemic. Foreign universities and colleges have lowered their admission criteria, which is creating good opportunities for Mongolian students. Student Namong has successfully enrolled at New York University, Shanghai, by focusing on her study full-time while being locked down at home. She notes that this year, foreign universities have lowered their admission requirements because of the pandemic. Besides language skills, schools normally examine other capabilities of students, such as critical thinking and team-working skills. This year, things are quite different. As a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, SAT tests have been cancelled. Some schools didn't ask for SAT scores, which was a relief to me. Most universities have implemented a flexible admission process. This year, they approved Duolingo test scores for the first time instead of only TOEFL and IELTS. In order to motivate students and encourage the desire for learning, international universities and colleges are providing students with easier access to tertiary education. For those who are preparing exams at home, experts advise that one should study for 10 to 15 hours a day. They note that, apart from language scores, it's important to hone one's other potential capabilities, such as good communication skills and various talents.
In case of US universities, they only give about 10 to 15% importance to the test score. They focus more on the individual, as to who they are, what their aspirations are, etc. So I would advise students not to concentrate just on enrolling at schools. They even have an opportunity to get a gap year and examine themselves and find their true purpose in life.
Data shows that the number of Mongolian students that have received grants and scholarships from foreign higher educational institutions have doubled in recent years. Now let's take a look at currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Today, April 22nd, is International Mother Earth Day, according to the United Nations Emissions Gap Report of 2020. Despite a brief dip in carbon dioxide emissions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the world is still heading for a temperature rise in excess of 3 Celsius degrees this century, which is far beyond the 2015 Paris Agreement goals of limiting global warming to well below 2 Celsius degrees and aiming for 1.5 Celsius degree. For over a decade, the Emissions Gap Report has provided a yearly review of the difference between where greenhouse emissions are predicted to be in 2030. The report of 2020 finds that a dip in carbon dioxide emissions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic will make no significant difference to long-term climate change. However, a low-carbon pandemic recovery could cut 25% of greenhouse emissions expected in 2030, based on policies in place before the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2019, total greenhouse gas emissions, including land use change, reached a new high of 59.1 gigatons of carbon dioxide concentration. This means that atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide continue growing. The year 2020 is likely to be the warmest on record, with wildfires, droughts, storms, and glacier melt intensifying. Carbon dioxide emissions are predicted to fall by up to 7% as a result of the pandemic slowdown, but this dip only translates to a 0.01 Celsius reduction of global warming by 2050. Once economies heat up again after the pandemic, emissions will bounce back, perhaps even stronger than before the pandemic. For awareness of International Mother Earth Day, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres sent a video message noting we must act decisively to protect our planet from both the coronavirus and the existential threat of climate disruption.
As we mark International Mother Earth Day, our planet is at a tipping point. Humanity continues to abuse the natural world. We heedlessly plunder the Earth's resources, deplete its wildlife, and treat air, land, and seas as dumping grounds. Crucial ecosystems and food chains are being pushed to the brink of collapse. This is suicidal. We must end our war on nature and nurse it back to health. That means bold climate action to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius and adapt to the changes to come.
Thank you for staying with us on MNB World. Now let's take a look at Mongolia's current affairs. There's a good news for Mongolian business and manufacturers. Mongolians will soon be able to officially market their products on Amazon, the world's largest online shopping platform. The Department of Communications and Information Technology has started cooperating with Amazon. In other words, domestic producers will be able to export their products online to a market of 1 billion people rather than to a market of just 3 million. Amazon operates in 14 countries and currently sells its products in 103 countries through their platform. The government's action plan for 2020 to 2024 includes the implementation of the Rehabilitation 2024, a set of integrated measures with the goal of rehabilitating 8,000 hectares of land damaged by mining activities nationwide. In this context, a working group led by the Deputy Minister of Nature and Environment visited ULAANBAATAR from April 9th to 11th. The multi-sector joint working group inspected rehabilitated areas in Yalbak, Yurosom, ULAANBAATAR, which had been abandoned for many years due to various mining activities, including illegal mining operations. Aerial orthophoto mapping revealed that 4,321 cubic meters of stockpiled waste had been left on 200 hectares of damaged land. In the future, as part of the Rehabilitation 2024 measures, rehabilitation work will be intensified in accordance with the plan in the areas that need to be rehabilitated. Here's the weather forecast for the world's major cities. This is it for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.